On the show, in Wheelspin, we drive the new Volvo XC90. On the launch pad, we have a look at the new Ford Figo. Quicker presents the Quicker Car Guide. And on the road, we drive the Fiat Punto Evo to Nawalgarh. What I have with me is something that's going to gladden your heart if you happen to be an SUV lover. The Scandinavian warrior is what I call this, the brand new Volvo XC90. Volvo has been selling the XC90 in the Indian market, but with the launch of this new one, I think that's going to be part of history. Now let's have a look as to what this new XC90 really offers. It was in 2010 that Geely took over from Ford the ownership of Volvo, and the Scandinavian Chinese partnership started. And looking at the first production born out of this alliance, I have to say it is really more Scandinavian than Chinese. And it was about time the XC90 got a changeover too. It has been around for 14 years before this new one came along last August. Look at this new XC90 and you know instantly that this is a brand new car. There's nothing really common with the outgoing XC90, and in fact this sits on a brand new platform and the styling is all new. In fact, this looks a whole lot bolder and more flamboyant, unlike many other Volvo cars. It is very well made, it's solid, and in terms of safety it of course tops the list. So overall, if you look at this car, I think this is something that really inspires confidence. The new XC90 is built on what Volvo internally calls the SPA, or the Scalable Product Architecture platform, which means that this is a platform on which many body styles can and will be built in the future. Also, the mechanicals and the drivetrain is new, and looking at this XC90, one has to say that practically, other than the name, everything else has changed. In fact, it's the interiors of this new XC90 which really sets it apart from all other cars in this segment. And I can tell you, when you step inside, you are bound to like it, because this gives you a true Scandinavian flavor for design. It's really elegant, it's understated, and of course, it's very, very stylish. And it's very user-friendly, and that's the part I will just focus on in a bit. But before that, let me tell you that this is also full of all the luxuries that you can expect from a car in this segment. Fine quality leather with ventilated seats, even the fascia has quality leather with hand stitching on it, a small steering wheel, leather wrap of course, and of course you have premium features like the Bowers & Wilkins sound system, who not only supply to only top-end manufacturers, but in this car the system comes with 19 speakers, and of course you can tune it to the way you want to listen. For example, you can have the concert hall effect in this car. But the biggest change I think that this XC90 has is in terms of the technological evolution it has had as far as interiors are concerned. Yes, I say technological evolution because when you say technology, it is more or less associated with what goes under the bonnet, but not so in this car. To give you an example, the old XC90 came with 38 buttons to play your music and to do the things you wanted it to do. In this car, what you have is only 8 buttons. But in this car, the nerve center has changed to this one. A tablet-like display here, which has of course a touch screen and which will help you control all the information and all the functions that you want it to do. And this is so big and large and easy to read that you can actually make it work even while you're driving. In fact, the touchscreen is a really nice addition to the entire thing, and the elimination of buttons has made life really simple, and it becomes very, very user-friendly to use most of the functions. Of course, it will take a bit of getting used to, and for those who don't like to use their fingers, it might be a bit of a pain, but I think if you do buy this car and you start using it on an everyday basis, you will really get to like it. I just have to say that if you spend time here inside this new XC90, you are bound to fall in love with the interiors here. It's one of the finest interiors I've seen in a car. It's well crafted, reeks of luxury, it has the sophistication that you need in a premium SUV, and on top of all this, this is really user-friendly, and it has so many features which are very, very practical. In fact, it's the interiors of this car which really makes it so very special. Technically, the XC90 is a 7-seater with the second row of seating here as well as a third row of seating. But like most cars with third row of seating, this one too here is very cramped. You hardly have any knee room here. And on top of that, the seats here are not electrically adjustable, so you have to move them manually, which again adds to the discomfort in a way. As you can expect, the boot size here is adequate, 671 litres, and if you do fold down both the seats, you get 1950 litres, and that's enormous. After all, she's a big car. But what really impresses me is this. You see the two buttons here? This lowers down the height of the sill, and this is to facilitate the loading. Real thoughtfulness, and I am very impressed by the attention to detail that Volvo has paid in building this car, and this is one of the instances.
Volvo, in order to cut down on emissions and also the cost, will now use only 4-cylinder engines in this new XC90. But they assure us that in terms of performance, it will be on par with the bigger engines they had used before. So the new XC90 now gets a 4-pot engine.
When you first have a look at the spec sheet of this XC90, you would probably be surprised to find that she is powered by a relatively small engine. Just a 2-liter for a big car like this makes you feel, initially at least, that she might be a bit underpowered. But after you start driving it, all these doubts keep disappearing bit by bit as you step on the throttle. In fact, the engine comes here as very refined, very smooth, and there is hardly any turbo lag, which means acceleration is pretty much linear. This 2-liter common rail engine belts out 225 brake horsepower and a very healthy 470 Newton meters of torque. This is a common rail diesel, which means that she is supposed to be fuel efficient. In terms of the fuel efficiency, we still don't have the ARI figures on this, but Volvo tells us that this will be easily the best in class. And if European figures are anything to go by, then I would believe that. And this XC90 here is not really positioned as a performance SUV. And this is exactly what she is. Refined, smooth, and very easy to drive. In fact, you don't really feel that she lacks the power under the big bonnet. On the contrary, the XC90 is actually quite drivable. And what makes it so here is the steering wheel. The steering wheel is quite light, and it's easy to take this car out of the parking lot. And even when you are on the highway or on a twisty road, this still gives you enough feedback. In fact, it's quite nice to drive.
The engine is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission, which is again a new one and developed for this car, and it comes with different driving modes.
Volvo, of course, offers you different driving modes, and in fact this car comes with 4 of them: Eco, Comfort and the Dynamic, which in fact means the sports mode. Everything really changes once you put the car into the dynamic mode, and the car, of course, becomes a little more spirited in terms of the performance, but also in terms of the visual appeal, it changes. When you switch here to the dynamic mode, even the instrumentation changes color. It becomes red and gives you that feeling of power and sportiness. Another mode which is very important for an SUV, and that is the off-road mode. This is what the car comes with. In fact, if you put the car in the off-road mode, it raises the height of the car and the dynamics again change. And every time you hit a bad patch, you should do it because it protects the undercarriage as well as gives you enough ground clearance. And the ground clearance here is really high. It's 238 millimeters. And in fact, you can raise it to 268 millimeters. And that's what an SUV should have, I feel. It really makes going through the bad patches on the road a breeze. And in fact, if you do want to venture off the road, have no worries, because this is one car which is very capable.
You will get 2 options for your wheel size. The Inscription trim will ride on 20-inch wheels, while as the Momentum will get 19-inch wheels. But both will come with the all-wheel drive to give it more off-road capability.
And of course, if you talk about a Volvo, you have to talk about their strength and the USP they have: safety. In terms of safety, of course, this car comes packed with pretty much everything. ABS, EVD, 7 airbags. Of course, in terms of safety, I give it a 5-star rating, but that's exactly what it got from the European NCAP as well. But in fact, it's not only the 5-star rating, but the scores which it got during the test is very, very high. In fact, the highest among cars in its class.
And then there are small mercies like the park assist, which virtually takes over from the driver when it comes down to squeezing into a tight spot. The cameras and the sensors scan the environment outside and send out the messages to the steering wheel, which corrects the steering angle and positions the car while you control the throttle and the brakes. So if you hate the idea of parallel parking, then this is one feature which will be of real help.
If you are looking to buy a premium SUV, then I have to say, do have a look at this Volvo XC90, because this is a car which has got many things going for it. Not only it looks very nice, but it has plenty of space. It's a 7-seater and it has features which are quite futuristic. On top of it, it drives well, and in true Volvo tradition, it's safe, comes with 7 airbags and other safety features as well. But at first glance, if you think that Volvo is asking a bit too much for this SUV, then I think you should do well to have a look at the feature list, because if you do so, then you will find that it's very comparable with the other SUVs available in the market. Besides, Volvo will also offer you a trim which is lower than this, the Momentum, and that should cost about 13 lakhs less than this one.
The XC90 is sold in 2 trims. The Inscription, which is the top of the line, and the Momentum. The Inscription is priced at Rs 77.9 lakh, while as the Momentum will set you back by Rs 64.9 lakh. These are ex-showroom prices, New Delhi. Ford India this week launched the new 2nd generation of their best-selling car, the Figo. The Figo is a hatchback which Ford had launched in 2009, and it was their most successful car for the Indian market. This new Figo is based on a completely new platform with fresh styling and many class-leading features like the longest wheelbase and 6 airbags for safety. The interiors too, as to be expected, sport a new look with many user-friendly features. The new Figo will be sold with both the petrol and the diesel engine. While the petrol will be powered by a 1.2-litre engine, the diesel will have a bigger 1.5-litre TDCI engine. It will also come with the choice of an automatic transmission with the petrol engine. The price for the base petrol model starts at a rather competitive Rs 4.29 lakh, while as the base diesel will be priced at Rs 5.29 lakh.
I've been traveling across Rajasthan in the wonderful Fiat Punto Evo, and if you caught the show over the last 2 episodes, you'd know that I've already been to Alwar and Mandawa, and today I'm headed from Mandawa to Dundlod and Nawalgarh, and I've really enjoyed driving this car. It's been an excellent travel companion. I like it more with every trip, so I'm all set to get behind the wheel. As I said, I've been driving the Fiat Punto Evo for quite some time now, and it's really grown on me. Even though it's a compact car, it feels really spacious inside. The seats are super comfortable. There's lots of leg room. I love the driving position. It's nice and high given the size of the car. It also has high ground clearance, which is a huge plus on the rugged terrain that I sometimes have to endure on a road trip. And the stereo system is particularly good. I love listening to my music while I drive. All in all, you're really set for a long trip in this car. Let's get rolling. The Fiat Punto Evo that I'm driving right now is the diesel variant. It's the 1.3 litre diesel and it churns out 93 PS, which is a healthy amount of power for a car this size. It's also nice and fuel efficient. It gives 21.2 kilometers to the litre, so that's nice and easy on the pocket. And my next stop now is Dundlod. En route from Mandawa to Nawalgarh is a little town called Dundlod, which I'm going to stop by to see its fort. Then I'll drive on to Nawalgarh, a vibrant town known for its painted havelis. Some of the finest frescoes in the region can be found here. Having reached Dundlod, my first stop is the Dundlod Fort. And this place is still maintained by the same royal family that built it over 200 years ago. It combines both Mughal and Rajput decorative elements and in fact even some European decorative elements. So let's take a look inside. Dundlod Fort is maintained by descendants of the family who built the fort over 2 centuries ago. It is the same family after whom the Shekhawati region is named. Paintings in the Diwan-e-Khas depict the royals of the family. This is the Duchhatta above the Diwan-e-Khas, and Duchhatta means the second level terrace. So it's essentially an elevated area that surrounds the Diwan-e-Khas from which one could look into the Diwan-e-Khas and observe the proceedings happening there. So this was the Zinana. It was where the women of the house would gather to take a look at what was going on in the Diwan-e-Khas, overlooking and overhearing the meetings. And it's interesting how even architecturally the gender dynamics of that time are reflected. After a pit stop in Dundlod to check out the Dundlod Fort, I've now arrived in Nawalgarh and my first stop is the Uttara Haveli, also known as the Morarka Haveli. And it's a truly extraordinary example of Shekhawati art. Just look at how intricate the frescoes are. The walls are painted with so much detail. The doors are also beautiful. They're wood-carved doors. There's also some stunning examples of mirror work. All in all, it's truly an extraordinary example of the artwork of the region. The other frescoes and paintings in this Haveli depict scenes of royal processions, folk heroes, and several scenes of Radha and Krishna. After visiting the Uttara Haveli, I've come to visit the Podar Haveli, and it's one of the most well-kept Havelis in the region. It's also among the largest and most impressive. Let's check it out. I'm seated in the Baithak of the Podar Haveli. Now, the word Haveli itself actually conveys so much about the nature of the architecture. Haveli comes from a Persian word that is derived from a combination of hava and vali. So it essentially means a space full of wind. And that's a very apt description because the central open courtyard allows for so much cross ventilation. And the central courtyard is the area exclusively for the interactions of the men and the visitors of the house, whereas the interior, which is partly where I'm seated as well as the elevated zinana above it, was for the family and for the women. And then behind that is the area for the servants and also stables for animals as well as toilets. So it's very strategic architecturally. But my favorite part, of course, are the frescoes. The frescoes and murals here are incredible. Let's take a look. The Podar Haveli is another magnificent example of the artistry and craftsmanship of the Shekhawati region. Now, the subject matter of the frescoes here will take either of three categories. It's either descriptive or decorative or portraiture. And descriptive entails stories from the epics, so you'll see scenes from the Ramayana and Mahabharata adorning the walls. Decorative entails the flower motifs and the more ornamental drawings and designs that adorn the walls. And then portraits, you'll see portraits of Englishmen, Indians, freedom fighters. It's a whole range of different portraits that you see here. Really, really beautiful. And the pigments that they use, they're vegetable and mineral colors, and the vibrancy of those colors even today is remarkable. There are about 750 distinct hand-painted scenes covering 11,200 square meters of wall and ceiling here. If you look carefully enough, you can infer a lot about the then contemporary society, people, their beliefs and rituals. I've thoroughly enjoyed my driving holiday through Rajasthan, and my trip to Dundlod and Nawalgarh has been particularly memorable. I found the Havelis and the fort absolutely charming, and I've grown to really like driving the Fiat Punto Evo over these trips. It's been such a reliable travel companion, and it combines sturdiness with luxury, sportiness with comfort. It really had everything that I needed to have an enjoyable trip. Thanks so much for joining us today, and see you again next week.